In the days when kings ruled mighty kingdoms and the world was full of power and splendor, there was a young man named Daniel who lived in a land far from his homeland of Judah. His story begins during a time of great upheaval, when the city of Jerusalem was besieged by the Babylonians under King Nebuchadnezzar. The city was captured, its walls torn down, and many of its people taken captive into exile in Babylon. Among those taken was Daniel, a young nobleman of royal descent, known for his wisdom, faith, and integrity. Daniel was chosen from among the captives to serve in the royal court of Babylon because of his remarkable qualities. The king's officials saw that Daniel and his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, were unblemished, handsome, wise, and capable of serving the king. They were given new names. Daniel was called Belteshazzar, Hananiah was called Shadrach, Mishael was called Meshach, and Azariah was called Abednego, to fit into the royal service. But Daniel made a choice. He resolved not to defile himself with the king's rich food and wine, which conflicted with his faith and commandments from God. Daniel approached the chief official and asked to be allowed to eat vegetables and drink water for 10 days, trusting that God would bless their faithfulness. The official was hesitant, fearing the king's displeasure, but Daniel's request was granted. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his friends appeared healthier and stronger than those who ate the royal provisions. God honored their faithfulness, and Daniel's wisdom and understanding increased. God blessed him with divine insight, enabling him to interpret visions and dreams that troubled kings and prophets alike. As Daniel's reputation grew, so did his influence. When King Nebuchadnezzar had a troubling dream that no wise man could interpret, Daniel sought God in prayer. That night, God revealed the dream and its meaning to Daniel in a vision. Daniel praised God, acknowledging that wisdom and power belonged to him alone. He boldly approached the king and recounted the dream: a magnificent statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet partly of iron and clay. Suddenly, a stone cut out without human hand struck the statue at its feet, smashing it into pieces. The stone then grew into a mountain filling the whole earth. Daniel explained to Nebuchadnezzar that each part of the statue represented successive kingdoms: Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. The feet of iron mixed with clay symbolized a divided kingdom that would be fragile. But the stone represented God's everlasting kingdom, which would crush all earthly powers and stand forever. Overwhelmed by this divine insight, Nebuchadnezzar bowed before Daniel, acknowledging that the God of Daniel is the true and supreme God. The king honored Daniel and made him a high ruler in Babylon, placing him over the province and appointing his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in charge of the affairs of Babylon. Yet pride and arrogance soon entered the heart of Nebuchadnezzar. He constructed a golden statue, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura. He summoned all officials, rulers, princes, and governors to the dedication of the idol. A herald proclaimed that everyone must bow down and worship this golden image when they heard the sound of musical instruments. Anyone who refused would be thrown into a blazing furnace. As the music blared and the people of every nation and language fell to their knees to worship the idol, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow. They remained faithful to the true God, even under threat of death. Enraged, Nebuchadnezzar ordered that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. The strongest soldiers bound the 3 young men and threw them into the fiery furnace. The flames were so intense that the soldiers who cast them in were consumed by the heat, but to everyone's astonishment, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were unharmed. Walking in the midst of the flames, they were joined by a divine figure, some say an angel, others believe it was a pre-incarnate Christ, who protected them from the fire. Nebuchadnezzar looked into the furnace and saw 4 men walking freely, unharmed, and the 4th had the appearance of a divine being. He called out, "Servants of the Most High God, come out!" When they emerged, not a hair on their heads was singed, their garments were unscathed, and there was no smell of fire on them. The king was filled with awe and bowed before the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, praising his power and declaring that no other God can save like this. Because of their unwavering faith, Nebuchadnezzar promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to higher positions and declared that the God of Daniel and his friends is the true God, the King of Kings, whose dominion lasts forever. But pride still lingered in Nebuchadnezzar's heart. One night, he had a dream that deeply disturbed him. He saw a great tree that reached to the heavens, lush with leaves and abundant fruit, providing shelter and food for all creatures. A divine messenger from heaven commanded that the tree be cut down, its branches and leaves destroyed, and its fruit scattered. Only the stump and roots were to remain, bound with iron and bronze, and left to stay in the grass of the field. The king was told he would be driven away from human society to live among the wild animals, eating grass like an ox, until he acknowledged that the Most High rules over all kingdoms and gives power to whom he wills. Daniel, known as Belteshazzar, was called to interpret the dream. He told the king that the tree represented Nebuchadnezzar himself, mighty and influential, reaching the heavens, providing for all. But because of his pride, arrogance, and self-exaltation, the king would be humbled and driven away to live like an animal until he recognized that God alone rules over the kingdoms of men. Nebuchadnezzar was warned to humble himself and turn from his pride. Yet, a year later, while walking on the palace roof, boasting, "Is not this great Babylon which I have built for my mighty power and for my majesty?" immediately a voice from heaven declared that his kingdom was taken from him. The king was driven from his throne, his mind changed, and he was made to live outside among the animals. His hair grew long like eagle feathers, and his nails became like claws. He ate grass and was soaked with the dew of heaven until he acknowledged God's sovereignty. After 7 times passed, his reason was restored, and he lifted his eyes to heaven, praising the Most High. His kingdom was restored to him, and he recognized that God's dominion is everlasting and that he rules over the affairs of men. Nebuchadnezzar's heart was humbled, and he declared the greatness of God. Later, King Belshazzar held a great feast, drinking from the sacred vessel stolen from Jerusalem. While he praised his gods of gold, silver, and stone, suddenly fingers appeared writing on the wall of the palace. The inscription read Mean, Tekel, Upharsin. Fear gripped him, and the wise men could not interpret the mysterious writing. The queen advised him to summon Daniel, a man endowed with divine wisdom. Daniel was brought before the king and explained that the writing meant that God had numbered Belshazzar's kingdom and found it wanting. His reign was divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That very night, the kingdom fell when the Medes and Persians stormed Babylon, and Belshazzar was slain. Daniel was honored and elevated to high rank in the new kingdom. Under the Persian ruler Darius, Daniel's faith was once again tested. The administrators, jealous of his influence, conspired to trap him by convincing King Darius to issue a decree that anyone praying to any god or man besides the king for 30 days would be thrown into the lion's den. Daniel, faithful to his God, continued praying 3 times a day with his windows open toward Jerusalem, trusting in God's protection. The officials caught Daniel praying, and the king reluctantly ordered him to be cast into the den of lions. The king said, "May your God whom you serve continually rescue you." A stone was placed over the den's entrance, and the king sealed it with his signet ring. That night, King Darius fasted and could not sleep, anxiously awaiting morning. At dawn, he hurried to the lion's den and called out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to rescue you?" Daniel replied, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and I am unharmed because I was found innocent before him." Overjoyed, the king commanded Daniel to be taken out of the den. No wound was found on him, for he trusted in God. The king then ordered those who accused Daniel to be thrown into the lions' den, along with their families. The lions devoured them, showing the justice of God's judgment. From that day, Darius declared that everyone in his kingdom must reverence the God of Daniel, for he is the living God and enduring forever. Daniel's visions continued to reveal future events. He saw 4 great beasts rising from the sea, each different, symbolizing kingdoms that would rise and fall. The first was like a lion with eagle's wings, the second like a bear raised up on one side with ribs in its mouth, the third like a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, and the fourth, a terrifying, mighty beast with iron teeth and 10 horns. As he watched, a little horn appeared, boasting and speaking arrogantly, waging war against God's saints. In the heavenly court, the Ancient of Days sat in judgment, his clothing white as snow and his throne ablaze with fire. The books of judgment were opened, and the beasts were slain and cast into the fiery flame. Then Daniel saw one like a son of man approach the Ancient of Days, given authority, glory, and a kingdom that would never end. All nations, peoples, and languages would serve him. Daniel was deeply troubled by these visions, but an angel explained that these kingdoms would be temporary, and God's eternal kingdom would ultimately prevail. The saints of the Most High would inherit this everlasting kingdom, reigning forever. Later, Daniel saw a vision of a ram with 2 horns, one higher than the other, pushing west, north, and south, overpowering all. Suddenly, a goat with a prominent horn between its eyes came from the west and charged at the ram, breaking its horns and trampling it. The goat grew very powerful, but its horn was broken, and 4 smaller horns emerged in its place. From one of these grew a fierce king who would oppose God, desolate the sanctuary, and trouble the saints for a time. Gabriel explained to Daniel that these visions foretold future rulers and conflicts, including the rise and fall of empires like Persia and Greece, and the tumultuous battles that would lead toward the end times. The prophecies detailed a time of great upheaval, deception, and persecution, but also assured that God's plan would ultimately bring victory. The angel revealed that a wicked king would exalt himself above all gods, speak against the Most High, and deceive many. He would honor a strange god of fortresses, give gifts to allies, and oppress the saints. But his end was certain: he would be broken not by human hands but by divine judgment. In the final chapters, Daniel received visions of the end times, including a great king of the north and a king of the south, their battles, alliances, betrayals, and the rise of a contemptible ruler who would exalt himself above every god and commit abominations. Yet, God's justice was assured, the saints would be delivered, and God's everlasting kingdom would be established. Throughout his life, Daniel remained faithful amid powerful kingdoms, dangerous threats, and confusing visions. His unwavering trust in God, his humble prayer life, and his divine wisdom made him a prophet and a model for all believers. His story teaches us that faith and integrity can withstand any storm, that God's sovereignty is supreme over all worldly powers, and that his kingdom will come in fullness and glory. Let us remember Daniel's courage, his steadfastness, and his deep reliance on God's wisdom. May his example inspire us to stand firm in our faith, to seek divine guidance, and to trust that God's plans are perfect, even when we do not fully understand them. For the Lord is the ultimate ruler over history, and his kingdom is everlasting. If this story of Daniel has blessed your heart, please like, comment below your favorite part, and share this message with your friends and family. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring biblical stories. Together, let us spread the word of God's faithfulness and his everlasting kingdom. May God's strength and wisdom be with you always.